gonna read chapter 5, I think. Yeah, we're on chapter 5. Please, next chapter, bookmark where? I need a different bookmark for this. We're in chapter 5. Here's the 5 art. It's a silly little guy. Being a little silly little fucker. Alright. Gotta lock in. Gotta get my reading ready. Reading comprehension level up. Coraline locked the door of the drawing room with the cold black key. She went back into the kitchen, climbed onto a chair. She went back into the kitchen and climbed onto a chair. She tried to put the bunch of keys back on top of the door frame again. She tried 4 or 5 times before she was forced to accept that she just wasn't big enough, and she put them down on the counter next to the door. Her mother still hadn't returned from her shopping expedition. Coraline went to the freezer and took out a spare loaf of frozen bread in the bottom of the compartment. She made herself some toast with jam and peanut butter. She drank a glass of water. Bad combination, in my opinion. PB&J with water. Womp womp. She waited for her parents to come back. When it began to get dark, Coraline microwaved herself a frozen pizza. Then Coraline watched television. She wondered why grown-ups gave themselves all the good programs with the shouting and running around. After a while, she started yawning. Then she undressed, brushed her teeth, and put herself to bed. In the morning, she went into her parents' room, but their bed hadn't been slept in, and they weren't around. She ate canned spaghetti for breakfast. For lunch, she had a block of cooking chocolate and cooking chocolate? Sorry, my brain, I don't think I've ever heard of cooking chocolate. It's just chocolate, but for cooking. For lunch, she had a block of cooking chocolate and an apple. Mid-combo. The apple was yellow. Never mind, bad combo. And slightly shriveled, but it tasted sweet and good. For tea, she went down to Miss Spink and Miss Forcible. She had 3 digestive? Okay, she had 3 digestive biscuits, a glass of limeade, and a cup of weak tea. The limeade was very interesting. It didn't taste like anything like limes. It tasted bright green and vaguely chemical, like limeade Kool-Aid. Has the same kind of flavor, if you've ever had that. Coraline liked it enormously. She wished they had it at home. "How are your dear mother and father?" asked Miss Spink. "Missing," said Coraline. "I haven't seen either of them since yesterday. I'm on my own. I think I've probably become a single-child family. Tell your mother that we found the Glass Glow Empire Press clippings we were telling her about. She seemed very interested when Miriam mentioned them to her." "She vanished under mysterious circumstances," said Coraline, "and I believe my father has as well. I'm afraid we'll be out all day tomorrow, Caroline lovely," said Miss Forceful. "We'll be staying over with April's niece in the Royal Tunbridge Wells." There's a cat at my door. Let me get that cat real quick. Alright, cat has been let in. Now we can read book. Side note before I finish this chapter. I think I've already brought it up in a previous video. I love how lonely the book makes you feel. Like, it makes you feel just as helpless as Coraline. Like, when she's talking about how her parents are missing and they're just like, "Lamau." Anyway. I love how lonely this book makes you feel. It's as if I'm Coraline and I feel so alone. They showed Coraline a photographic album with photographs of Miss Spink's niece in it, and then Coraline went home. She opened her money box and walked down to the supermarket. She bought 2 large bottles of limeade, and a chocolate cake, and a new bag of apples, and went back home and ate them for dinner. Very 13-year-old girl dinner. All I need is my Kool-Aid, my chalky cake, and some appy slices. She cleaned her teeth and went to her father's office. She woke up his computer and wrote a story. Coraline's story. There was a girl, her name was Apple. She used to dance a lot. She danced and danced until her feet turned into I've never seen that word written out. Her feet turned into sausages. The end. Good story. She printed out the story, turned off the computer. She drew a picture of the little girl dancing underneath the words on the paper. She ran, Cully, I'm trying to read. You can't itch yourself on the book. She ran herself a bath with too much bubble bath in it, and the bubbles ran over the side and went all over the floor. She dried herself and the floor as best she could and went to bed. Coraline woke up in the night. She went into her parents' room, but the bed was made and empty. The glowing green numbers on the digital clock glowed. 3:12 a.m. All alone, in the middle of the night, Coraline began to cry. There was no other sound in the empty flat. She climbed into her parents' bed, and after a while, she went to sleep. Coraline was woken by cold paws bapping her face. She opened her eyes. Big green eyes stared back at her. It was the cat. Hello, said Coraline. How did you get in? Cat didn't say anything. Coraline got out of bed. She was wearing a long t-shirt and pajama bottoms. Have you come to tell me something? The cat yawned, which made its eyes flash green. Do you know where Mommy and Daddy are? The cat blinked at her slowly. Is that a yes? The cat blinked again. Coraline decided that was indeed a yes. Will you take me to them? The cat stared at her. Then it walked out the hall. She followed it. It walked the length of the corridor and stopped down at the very end of the full-length mirror, where the full-length mirror hung. The mirror had been a long time before the inside of the wardrobe door. It had been hanging there on the wall when they moved in, and although Coraline's mother had spoken occasionally of replacing it with something newer, she never had. Coraline turned on the light in the hall. The mirror showed the corridor behind her. That was only to be expected. But reflected in the mirror were her parents. They stood awkwardly in the reflection of the hall. They seemed sad and alone. There's a second cat at my door. The second cat has been let in. Stood awkwardly and alone. As Coraline watched, they waved to her slowly with limp hands. Coraline's father had his arm around her mother. In the mirror, Coraline's mother and father stared at her. Her father opened his mouth and said something, but she could hear nothing at all. Her mother breathed on the inside of the mirror glass, and quickly, before the fog faded, she wrote, it's help us, but it's backwards. Here, I'll show you. I'll give you that. Look how intense that is. Whoa. This book has a lot of cool typing that I like. Like the poems are all written out in stanzas, which is cool. With the tip of her forefinger, the fog on the inside of the mirror faded, and so did her parents. And now the mirror reflected only the corridor and Coraline and the cat. Where are they? Coraline asked the cat. Cat made no reply, but Coraline could imagine its voice, dry as a dead fly on a windowsill in the winter, saying, Well, where do you think they are? They aren't going to come back, are they? Said Coraline. Not under their own steam. Cat blinked at her. Coraline took it as a yes. Right, said Coraline. Then I suppose there's only one thing left to do. She walked into her father's study. She sat down at his desk. Then she picked up the telephone and opened the phone book and the telephone to the local police station. Police, said a gruff male voice. Hello, she said. My name is Coraline Jones. You're up a bit after your bedtime, aren't you, young lady? Said the policeman. Possibly, said Coraline, who was not going to be diverted. But I'm ringing to report a crime. And what sort of crime would that be? Kidnapping. Grown-up napping, really. My parents have been stolen away into a world on the other side of the mirror in the hall. And do you know who stole them? Asked the police officer. Coraline could hear the smile in his voice, and she tried extra hard to sound like an adult might sound, to make him take her seriously. I think the other mother has them both in her clutches. She may want to keep them and sew their eyes with black buttons. She may simply have them in order to lure me back into the reach of her fingers. I'm not sure. Ah, the nefarious clutches of her fiendish fingers, is it? He said. You know what I suggest, Miss Jones? No, said Coraline. What? You ask your mother to make you a big old mug of hot chocolate and give you a great big old hug. There's nothing like hot chocolate and a hug to make the nightmares go away. And if she starts to tell you off for waking her up at this time of night, why, you tell her that it's what the policeman said." He had a deep, reassuring voice. Coraline was not reassured. "When I see her," said Coraline, "I shall tell her that." Then she put down the telephone. Black Cat, who sat on the floor, grooming its fur through the entire conversation, now stood up and led the way into the hall. Coraline went back into her bedroom. She put on her blue dressing gown and her slippers. She looked under the sink for a flashlight and found one, but the batteries had long since run down, barely glowed with the faintest straw-colored light. She put it down again and found a box of, in case of emergency, white wax candles, and thrust one into a candlestick. She put an apple into each pocket. She picked up a ring of keys and took the old black key off the ring. She walked into the drawing room and looked at the door. She had a feeling that the door was looking at her, which she knew was silly, and knew it was a deeper level was somehow true. She went back into her bedroom and rummaged in the pocket of her jeans. She found the old stone with the hole in it and put it into her dressing gown pocket. She lit the candle wick with a match and watched it sputter and light. Then she picked up the black key, and it was cold in her hand. She put in the keyhole in the door, but did not turn the key. "When I was a little girl," said Coraline to the cat, "when we lived in our old house a long, long time ago, my dad took me for a walk on the wasteland between our house and the shops. It wasn't the best place to go for a walk, really. There were all these things that people had thrown away back there. Old cookers, broken dishes, and dolls with no arms and no legs, and empty cans and broken bottles. Mom and Dad made me promise not to go exploring back there because there were too many sharp things and tetanus and such. But I kept telling them I wanted to explore it. So one day, my dad put on his big brown boots and his gloves and put my boots on me and my jeans and sweater, and we went for a walk. We must have walked for about 20 minutes. We went downhill to the bottom of the gully where the stream was, when my dad suddenly said to me, 'Coraline, run away, up the hill, now!' He said in a tight sort of way, urgently, so I did. I ran away up the hill. Something hurt me on the back of my arm as I ran, but I kept running. As I got to the top of the hill, I heard somebody thundering up the hill behind me. It was my dad, charging at me like a rhino. When he reached me, he picked me up in his arms and swept me over the edge of the hill. And then we stopped, and we puffed, and we panted, and we looked back down the gully. The air was alive with yellow wasps. We must have stepped on a wasp's nest in the rotten branch as we walked. And while I was running up the hill, my dad stayed and got stung, to give me time to run away. His glasses had fallen off when he ran. I only had one sting on the back of my arm. He had 39 stings all over him. We counted later, in the bath. The black cat began to wash its face and whiskers in a manner that indicated increasing impatience. Coraline reached down, stroked the black cat on its head and neck. Cat stood up, walked several paces until it was out of her reach. Then it sat down and looked up at her again. "So," said Coraline, "later that afternoon, my dad went back again to the wasteland to get his glasses back. He said if he left it another day, he wouldn't be able to remember where they'd fallen. As soon as he got home, wearing his glasses, he said he wasn't scared when he was standing there, and the wasps were stinging him and hurting him, and he was watching me run away, because he knew he had to give me enough time to run, or the wasp would have come after both of us." Coraline turned the key in the door. It turned with a loud clunk. The door swung open. There was no brick wall on the other side of the door. Only darkness and cold wind blew through the passageway. Coraline made no move to walk through the door. "And he said that wasn't brave of him, doing that, just standing there being stung," said Coraline to the cat. "It wasn't brave because he wasn't scared. It was only a thing he could do. But going back again to get his glasses, when he knew the wasps were there, when he was really scared, that was brave." She took her first step into the dark corridor. She could smell dust and damp and mustiness. The cat padded along beside her. "And why's that?" asked the cat, although it sounded barely interesting. "Because," she said, "when you're scared, but you still do it anyway, that's brave." The candle cast a huge, strange, flickering shadow along the wall. She heard something moving in the darkness beside her, or to one side of her. She could not tell. It seemed as if it was keeping pace with her, whatever it was. And that's why you're going back to her world then, said the cat? Because your father once saved you from wasps. Don't be silly, said Coraline. I'm going back there for them, because they are my parents, and if they noticed I was gone, I'm sure they'd do the same for me. You know, you're talking again. How fortunate I am, said the cat. I'm having a traveling companion of wisdom and intelligence. Its tone remained sarcastic, but its fur was bristling, and a brush of the tail struck up in the air. Coraline was going to say something like, sorry, or wasn't it a lot shorter walk last time? When the candle went out, as suddenly as if it had been snuffed by someone's hand, there was a scrambling and pattering. Coraline could feel her heart pounding against her ribs. She put out one hand and felt something wispy, like a spider web, brush her hands and her face. At the end of the corridor, the electric light went on, blinding after the darkness. A woman stood, silhouetted by the light, a little ahead of Coraline. Coraline, darling, she called. Said Coraline. She ran forward, eager. No, not Mom, said Coraline, and she ran forward, eager and relieved. Darling, said the woman, why did you ever run away from me? Coraline was too close to stop. She felt the other mother's cold arms enfold her. She stood there, rigid and trembling, as the other mother held her tightly. Where are my parents? Coraline asked. We're here, said the other mother, in a voice so close to her real mother's that Coraline could scarcely tell them apart. We're here. We're ready to love you and play with you and feed you and make your life interesting. Coraline pulled back. The other mother let her go with reluctance. The other father, who had been sitting in the chair in the hallway, stood up and smiled. Come on into the kitchen, he said. I'll make us a midnight snack, and you'll want something to drink. Hot chocolate, perhaps? Coraline walked down the hallway until she reached the mirror at the end. There was nothing reflected in it but a young girl in a dressing gown and slippers, who looked like she had recently been crying, but whose eyes were real eyes, not black buttons, and who was holding tightly onto a burned-out candle in a candlestick. She looked at the girl in the mirror, and the girl in the mirror looked back at her. I will be brave, thought Coraline. No, I am brave. She put down the candlestick on the floor, then turned around. The other mother and her father were looking at her hungrily. I don't need a snack, she said. I have an apple, see? Took the apple from her dressing gown pocket, then bit into... Hi, handsome. You can't go out, you were just let in, silly billy. Then bit into it with relish and enthusiasm that she did not really feel. The other father looked disappointed. The other mother smiled, showing a full set of teeth, and each of the teeth was a tiny bit too long. The lights in the hallway made her black button eyes glitter and gleam. You don't frighten me, said Coraline, although they did frighten her very much. I want my parents back. Hang on. Oh, still a long chapter. I was like, how many more pages? A few. We got this. This one will take a while to upload. The world seemed to shimmer a little at the edges. Whatever would I have done with your old parents? If they have left you, Coraline, it must be because they became bored with you or tired. Now I will never become bored with you, and I will never abandon you. You will always be safe here with me. The other mother's wet-looking black hair drifted around her head, like tentacles of a creature in the deep ocean. They weren't bored of me, said Coraline. You're lying. You stole them. Silly, silly Coraline. They are fine wherever they are. Coraline simply glared at the other mother. I'll prove it, said the other mother, and brushed the surface of the mirror with her long white fingers. It clouded over as if a dragon had breathed on it, and then it cleared. In the mirror it was daytime already. Coraline was looking at a hallway, all the way down to her front door. The door opened, and from the outside, and Coraline's mother and father walked inside. They carried suitcases. That was a fine holiday, said Coraline's father. How nice it is to not have Coraline anymore, said her mother with a happy smile. Now we can do all the things we wanted to do, like go abroad, but we prevented from having a little daughter. Fast! Yeah, are you yelling? Okay. Do you want to come yell up here? Let me go help this little goober. Your dang old kids. So silly. Ba 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 ba. And, said her father, I take great comfort in knowing that her other mother will take better care of her than we ever could. Mirror fogged and faded and reflected the night once more. See, said her other mother. No, said Coraline, I don't see, and I don't believe it either. She hoped that what she said had just what she had seen had she hoped that what she had just seen was not real, but she was not as certain as she sounded. There was a tiny doubt inside her, like a maggot in an apple core. Then she looked up and saw the expression of the other mother's face, a flash of real anger which crossed her face like a summer lightning. And Coraline was sure, in her heart, that what she had seen in the mirror was no more than an illusion. Coraline sat down on the sofa and ate her apple. Please, said the other mother, don't be difficult. She walked into the drawing room and clapped her hands twice. Then was a rustling noise, and a black rat appeared and started up her. Bring me the key, she said. The rat chittered. Then it ran through the open door and led back into Coraline's own flat. The rat returned, dragging the key behind it. Why don't you have your own key on this side? Asked Coraline. There's only one key, only one door, said the other father. Hush, said the other mother. You must not bother our darling Coraline's head with such trivialities. She put the key in the keyhole and twisted the lock. The lock was stiff, but it clunked closed. She dropped the key into her apron pocket. Outside, the sky had begun to lighten to a luminescent gray. If we aren't going to have a midnight snack, said her other mother, we still need our beauty sleep, and I'm going back to bed. Coraline, I would strongly suggest that you do the same. She placed her long white fingers on her shoulders. On the shoulders of the other father, she walked him out of the room. Coraline walked over to the door. In the far corner of the drawing room, she tugged on it. It was tightly locked. The door of her other parents' bedroom was now closed. She was indeed tired, but she did not want to sleep in the bedroom. She did not want to sleep under the same roof as her other mother. The front door was not locked. Coraline walked into the dawn and down the stone stairs. She sat down on the bottom step. It was cold. Something furry pushed itself against her side in one smooth, insinuating motion. Coraline jumped, then breathed out a sigh of relief when she saw what it was. Oh, it's you, she said to the black cat. See, said the cat. It wasn't so hard to recognize me, was it? Even without names. Well, what if I wanted to call you? The cat wrinkled its nose and managed to look unimpressed. Calling cats, it confided, tend to be rather overrated activity. Might as well call a whirlwind. What if it's dinner time? Asked Coraline. Wouldn't you want to be called then? Of course, said the cat. But a simple cry of dinner would do nicely. See? No need for names. What does she want? Why does she want me? Coraline asked the cat. Why does she want me to stay here with her? She wants something to love, I think, said the cat. Something that isn't her. She might want something to eat as well. That's hard to tell with creatures like that. Do you have any advice? Asked Coraline. The cat looked as if it were about to say something else sarcastic. Then it flicked its whiskers and said, Challenge her. There's no guarantee she'll play fair, but her kind of thing loves games and challenges. What kind of thing is that? Asked Coraline. But the cat made no answer, simply stretched luxuriously and walked away. Then it stopped and turned and said, I'd go inside if I were you. Get some sleep. You have a long day ahead of you. And then the cat was gone. Still, Coraline realized it had a point. She crept back into the silent house, past the closed bedroom door, and sighed. Which the other mother and other father... What? She wondered. Slept. Waited. Then it came to her that she could open the bedroom door. She would find it empty. Or more precisely, that it was an empty room and it would remain empty until the exact moment that she opened the door. Somehow, that made it easier. Coraline walked into the green and pink parody of her own bedroom. She closed the door and hauled the toy box in front of it. It would not keep anyone out, but the noise somebody would make trying to disclose it would wake her, she hoped. The toys in the toy box were still mostly asleep, and they stirred and muttered as she moved their box. And then they went back to sleep. Coraline checked under her bed, looking for rats, but there was nothing there. She took off her dressing gown and slippers, climbed into bed, and fell asleep. With barely enough time to reflect, she did so on what the cat could have meant by a challenge. And that was chapter 5. Starting to get good. I love this book. I love how alone it makes you feel. I love how Coralines takes no shit. One thing that this is my number one gripe with the movie is the book makes, as I've said earlier, the book makes you feel alone. No one in the world you can trust except Coraline. Even the cat who's on her side, it's like, okay, but like, what if? Oh, I should show you. The cover, that's the outfit she's wearing when she goes back to the other world. That's her dressing gown and the little candle. But like, okay, back to my statement. The movie adds Wybie. Wybie's supposed to make Coral and like other Wybie. And they're supposed to help Coraline feel less alone. Which kind of grumbles me because the whole point of this book is how alone you feel. And how like everything is up to you and no one's going to help you. So my biggest gripe with the movie is Wybie exists. Oh, are you being cozy? Yo, look at this girl. Here's another little clip for you. Look at this girl. She's so comfy cozy. Every time I try to read for you, she's begging for belly rubs. And it makes it really hard to read because I can't hold the book still. Oh, but that was chapter 5. Oh, we're starting to get to the good parts. I'm not going to spoil, but I'm just telling you. I can't wait till we get to the other father, like, I guess, fight scene, you'll call it. Because you know how, like, in the movie, she sees everything magical. And then when she comes back again to get her parents, everything's all messed up. I'm going to call those fight scenes. The other father fight scene in the movie is, like, him at his piano, and, like, the piano is controlling him. Or, it's him in the garden, and becomes the pumpkin monster. Other father monster boss fight, so creepy in this book, and I can't wait to put that trauma onto someone else. So tomorrow we'll read chapter 6, and it'll be Poggers and Epic, and apparently you have texted me saying Storm finally got on. Took him fucking long enough. Then he said he was gonna get on at like 5. You guy, I know where he lives. I can fuck him up for you. No, we'll read the next chapter tomorrow. I'm gonna get cozy because I'm super freaking tired. Alright, you good night. I love you.